What's up, y'all? You're checking out Living Corporate on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell in that corner so you keep up to date with all the dope content we're creating here, driving real talk in the corporate world. God-Is Rivera. What God-Is? What is going on?
What it do, baby? No, I'm just kidding. I'm so happy to be here.
God-Is. Yo, let me tell
All
you.
the things are going on.
Let me talk to you. Let me tell you and everybody who's listening something real fast. You know, when Living Corporate they put out its pitch decks and like, hey, yo, these are the types of people that we attract, the kind of conversations we have. As soon as I got you, I said, let me make sure I grab this little profile picture, added it up, right there in that pitch deck, right? I appreciate you because I think about when you first came on Living Corporate, this was like back in, like, it might have been like 2019. Like,
I feel like it was 2019. Yeah, it was pre-pandemic. I was just getting my feet wet at Twitter, man. 5 years ago. Oh my God, do I still look good, y'all?
You look phenomenal. You look phenomenal. Respectfully to everybody involved.
It don't crack. It don't crack.
Sometimes be careful, it bend a little bit.
Some people be cracking, but we don't crack. We don't crack.
So you know, to your point, like about 5 years ago, right? Like at the time, I remember I was really excited to connect with you because you were and still are like this leading dynamic voice as it pertains to brand and marketing and like understanding like message. But then you also had you understood like the connection between brand building and mobilizing community to extend brand, which if I can continue to give you some flowers, further helped educate and like rather inform Living Corporate's future value proposition. Because thank you. No, thank you. So like as we exist today, we started off as like a podcast and we went into like this brand storytelling, this like digital marketing agency. But now we're really an experiences management company, and like we have three major pillars. So we have data analytics.
Come on, pillars. So I'm a strategy girl. You know, I love me some pillars. I love me a damn framework. I love it.
So we got the data analytics, visualization, and organizational assessments. So we can ingest in anything. We can ingest in customer data, employee experience data. Then we bring in like intersectional analysis, visualization, super dope stuff using like R and Python and other things we got going on. We have an e-learning platform that's like autonomous, really kind of like very similar to like a music streamer because we've taken like our podcast library, we built our own LLM and like modularized all our modules into learning.
Wow,
content.
That's amazing.
And the third thing we have is the brand storytelling. And so you got to know that you are a genuine inspiration and continue to be an inspiration as I think about, okay, what does it look like to take these stories and like, and position that to organizations who are looking to to talk about why they're an employer of choice and what their commitments look like to historically marginalized communities. I think about those big ass billboards you had going on, like,
man,
right? And so like nobody, like straight up, like I genuinely think that like I know there are people that you'll probably never talk to who were inspired by and learned from your ability to leverage digital community to extend enterprise brand. Like that is super dope. It's really hard. And I just want to thank you for being like an incredible ambassador. And like you talked about your namesake and your family and your legacy last time we were on. And you were talking about honoring and being a good ancestor. We had that conversation. I want to say your witness, like I am a witness to that. And I just want to thank you. So sound man, we're going to put in the podcast recording, we're going to put some applause right here, but clap it up.
Oh, yes.
Listen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Listen. Now we connected, right? That was back 5 years ago. I got two kids. I got a whole nother house now. Less debt.
Ooh, we love that. Property.
Less debt, but less debt though. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Pay attention, y'all. You ain't got to live above your means all the time. But
that's right.
But when we connected again, you was Don Dada. I almost came here with my Twitter merch, right? I remember Jack was there with the goatee, John. Back when we all thought Twitter was gonna be this utopia forever.
Right. We did.
Talk to me about what happened. Like It's been some time because you was there right
I was
before
there. I was there.
Elon.
I was
So
there.
talk
Yeah.
to me about like we're gonna get to your current role, but talk to me about
Yeah.
what it was like in the last kind of the waning hours of Twitter and that pivot. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, and well, first I want to like you gonna make me cry on Big Pun, man. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to represent the BX, and you got me emotional. It I'm just so grateful to be here, and I remember you did have me on in 2019 where I had a few wins under my belt, but a lot of the bulk of what I had dreamed of doing and what you just described, it means so much to me to know that the work that I set out to do is not only successful in its own right, it wasn't perfect, but that it inspired you and allowed you to go on to evolve, to create opportunities for yourself, properties, babies. Like this is the whole idea, right? Is to talk about why communities matter so much, but that the work itself would feed back into the communities and offer those opportunities for our own growth, our own connection, and that, of course, economic empowerment. So I want to thank you. And I stand here saying thank you, but every time you see me, you see a lot of people behind me as well who were amazing teams that I was fortunate enough to lead. They were amazing mentors who took risks and time with me. And so, and like I said in our last meeting, the ancestors who just poured into me what they had. So I just want to thank you for that. And I haven't talked about this too much yet, Zach, but because we got history, I'll definitely take you in. Being I think at it wasn't even just the waning hours of Twitter, it was the total seismic shift in society at that time. We're talking about late 2022, where the great Netflix correction, if you want to call it that, that's what they call it in the news, where things like streaming and tech and things that, if you had major bones in this industry, from a brand perspective, from a tech perspective, even if it was like an engineering perspective, whatever that may be, everything was changing in 2022. And so I think there was already a lot going on. But I think for me, where I remember, and I'll say this, I remember talking to my grandmother who I lost, unfortunately, in 2021. But I remember talking to her, and she was big in, she was always she thought of herself as an activist. She was a big community, leader. And she was also an educator. So she did a lot of work within communities, right? And, lived through the 60s, lived through the 50s, saw this. And I remember talking to her in 2020, and I was saying, isn't this amazing? And we not letting them go back, and we moving forward, and I got billboards up, you know what I mean, up in Atlanta,
Yes.
and this, and I'm making sure our people's voices are heard. And she was like so happy for me. And then she just said, but baby, like measure your success about, as far as they take you back after the progress, because they gonna get mad and it's gonna be some backsliding on the progress. So she was like, this is great, it looks like you've done that, but there's gonna be a pushback. So now you see you came from here, did you really go here, or are you actually here, meaning, and I was kind of like, oh, that felt a little pessimistic at the time. But having someone who went, lived through the civil rights era, who lived through watching major moments of policy change enacted around human rights, around civil rights, and then watching societal backlash to it, I think I recognized in the waning days of Twitter that that's what was happening. And I want to be very clear that, Twitter was not perfect at all, but the Twitter that I was a part of was trying to showcase two things. One, that you could have a platform and a service that could be a conduit for communities, that could be a voice and a platform for people that was democratized in every way, and that people could have an opportunity to talk about who they were, to find each other. Now, that was not perfect, and we know that, right? But the other part of Twitter was that the people inside Twitter could also represent those same people that you saw outside, that there would be an opportunity to have fully remote work, because that meant that anyone anywhere could work at the service, right? Because that's what we were serving. So I think when oh boy came over to Twitter, I recognized, I'm gonna just call him oh boy right now because the name triggering.
I respect it.
Yeah, and so I think when he came over, I recognized that there was about to be an assault on all of that.
Mm.
There was about to be an assault on communities being able to speak up and be democratized, people being able to teach each other and be informed, people being able to find communities together. And there couldn't be no utopia of a company
Mm.
that had Black leadership and people LGBTQ plus leadership, right? And all of these places making decisions about the communities, and we didn't even get to the utopia. We were still like fighting an uphill
Mm-hmm.
battle, but just the mere chance of progress, the small modicum of forward progression, the idea that people were working remotely and it felt freer to them and they could be with their children and they could rest and they could have hobbies and also pour into work that they cared about. That all had to be shut down. And so I think I recognized that it was tough, and I made sure that I was there for my team and we talked through what would it be like for us to try and survive through whatever was coming next, if we were here or not. And I think we were very clear that the work that we were doing at Twitter would no longer exist under this person.
Mm-hmm.
It was fundamentally clear. Not only would the work not exist, but he didn't want people like us running that work. Right. Like you said, Don Dada, you know what I mean? Like a girl had a little bit
you had the sauce. You had the sauce, not the juice. You had the sauce. And it's to your point, right? I was so disturbed because I remember people were, they were tweeting about it in real time.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, and I can't remember the brother's name, and I wouldn't say their name on here in the spirit of I don't want to put heat, like whatever, but he tweeted something, no God-Is, and I said, oh, that really got me. He said he was one of the community builders at Twitter, and he said, I will never build up something for someone else to control again. Like, this will be my last time.
Yeah.
And
I know who that was.
And I almost cried. Like, I think I teared up because I was like, dang, that is like. And in principle, I understand it, and I agree. Obviously, we not talking on
right. You got your own thing,
but my thing is just like, damn, like, what does that mean for just like Black creative? So every time you want to be creative and you want to build something for community, you got to start from scratch and build it right. You can't. So the day, and so what struck me about that moment at Twitter was that, to me, it also signaled a shift in it signaled a seismic shift at the intersection of Black creativity and tech spaces.
Yeah.
I don't believe since then we have seen the same level of energy and investment by Black and brown people into major tech platforms, because it's like, well, wait, nah, you could just take all of this. Right? And then, like, we see that reinforced even with these current layouts. Before I jump to that, we're back on your timeline. So I think I remember at that time we were in communication because we were talking about getting on the pod, and I was working with your PR person.
Yes. And I was like,
and your PR person is now over at Eventbrite. Shout out to Viviana. She's still rocking.
Yes, she is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but
my other homegirls over at Kickstarter, she was with me a lot of the time.
But then also you was rocking with MGD at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We just had her on the show. So like, so here's my thing though. You pivot from that and then you go to Disney. Yeah. What did that look like? And how did that feel?
We live in corporate today.
I've been waiting for this conversation.
Yeah, so again, I will say that the way things ended at Twitter, and not because of anyone who I worked with during my time there, but the way it ended is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, professional heartbreak of my career. I was devastated, even though I knew the boulder was coming, and I also want folks to understand that, like, there was a lot of up and down in that process. There was a lot of isn't he courts and this, there was
It was dramatic.
a lot of like what is going to happen. And even through that, there was so much destabilization and attention and resources that had to be now put towards this outside of the things that we should have been focusing on. But again, we had no choice. And I think it was just a larger play about who gets to have the power and resources to destabilize, organizations that are so integral in our society. I think that was huge. So to me, I think that what I did hinge on when I was leaving Twitter, and I will say this, I was not a part of the sort of big first cut that came in. I left about 2 weeks before that happened. And at the time, we were under the impression that there was going to be a court decision that we would come out okay in. And I wanted to then elevate my team who had been doing extremely well. And I felt like it's time for y'all to now rebuild this. We're going to be okay, in the way that, the next era of what this could be. They came up under my tutelage there. They were ready. And what I felt was that no matter what was going on and all the destabilizing that happened in the final days, I still felt that the work that I had done and my team had done was a proof point. It was a proof point in saying you can absolutely create an org, invest real power in the leadership of color or one who represents the communities you're trying to serve. And that's why I say, like, I joke about having the juice, but I give all the love and praise to Nola Weinstein and Leslie Berlin and Jack during his time there. And, even Ned, our CFO, like that was a lot of power and trust that they gave me. And so I always tell companies, take a chance on us and like, look at where we can take you. And so because of that, I felt that we had proven that when you invest in communities who are your consumers, this ain't even like communities that's just, we doing this to be nice. Right. These are our consumers that made us who we are. They are the ones that use our service or buy our product or, but subscribe. They are our consumers. And when you invest in the ones that are most marginalized, you can make things better for everybody. And that includes an investment in what you started the pod talking about is brand storytelling. How are they a part of that story? Because they're usually leading the most popular culture around why your brand is what it is anyway. Right. So they need to be a part of that storytelling. But the other thing that I wanted to prove was also that they can be integral in how we create products, build products, how we write policy and enforce policy. And I think that as crazy and chaotic as the end was, I felt very proud that my position existed at Instagram now. Mm-hmm. That position exists at WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. I remember sitting at my kitchen table and writing it out, asking my mom, does this sound good? Should I put global director? Does that sound jiggy, right? Okay, like, you know what I mean? And so like, I remember writing my JD. And again, that's the power and trust that I was, given by the amazing leadership at Twitter. And to watch that position exist at other places was phenomenal. So when Disney came to me with a brand new position that they had never been able to wrap their minds around at a VP of inclusive marketing, you're talking about Disney right down the middle of Main Street, USA. Like, they are apple pie and baseball, and they have never had to sort of charter the waters that were in the times of 2022 and sort of post really 2016. And they were in the middle of it. So I felt that going to a very different company, but was a staple of brand. There is about no more ubiquitous global brand than the Walt Disney Company. And then also to showcase that the work we had done for the past and even work I had done at VML, Y&R on the brand side was becoming something that top brands felt they needed to invest in. So I wanted to go there and prove out if it could work. So you,
because I'm going to tell you something. The way it looked outside, I was like, dang, she slid straight from that.
Yeah, it did look like that.
Pivoted to Disney.
Yeah.
And so then now, right, like seamless, you're now the chief content officer at Essence Venture. So like, talk to me about like this journey, right? Because for me, it's like, to me, it looks like you went from like, again, like everything is still marketing, right? Everything is still brand. Everything is still connection, and honestly, like
Mm-hmm.
effective and powerful content strategy
Mm-hmm.
fosters that.
Right. Exactly.
Talk to me about what it is you picked up and learned from your longer time at Twitter, your shorter time at Disney, to now being the chief content
Yeah.
officer in Essence Ventures. Like, what does that look like? How does that impact your day-to-day role? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, one is, remembering I started my career as the lowly senior social
Yeah.
strategist. And then, like, I took a marketing job just to figure it out because I thought I was going to be a journalist, and that didn't work out because it was the first recession,
Right. That's right.
back, almost 20 years ago, about 15 years ago
Yeah.
now. And then going into marketing. So my first role was always social media strategy. And that was sort of where I came up in the agency world, and then landed at VML, where I was able to sort of flip that work and focus still on strategy, but bringing in audience sort of. And I would say I really sort of do audience strategy no matter what. I do audience strategy. Now, once we figure out how to connect with that audience, most of the time it is always through content, right? Because of where we are. And, whether it was tweets or it was experiences during my time at Twitter, whether it was straight up campaign work on my ad days, I've always been really entrenched in content. And so at Disney, I think what I learned, Disney was going through a lot. I mean, if you saw any of the headlines during the time there, it was the idea that streaming, which is the business I came in to work on, was changing a lot as far as profitability. That's for any company, but also there was huge. I ain't calling it no damn culture war, because that don't even make no damn sense. Ain't nobody on the other side fighting y'all.
That's
Like,
right.
it's y'all
Yeah, it's
fighting.
one
Like,
sided
you know what
for
I'm saying?
sure.
Like, a war means that two people with like,
With
no, it's
equal,
it's
yeah, it's not that.
right. It's somebody causing problems because they're afraid they're losing power, straight up and
Straight up and
down,
down.
right? And so while that was happening with some of the right wing stuff, like what I learned is, one, what's important for a leader from an internal company perspective, and then also, again, audience strategy. What does your audience want to see? What are they connecting with from you as a company, from what you're putting out into the world? And again, you can't get more, again, ubiquitous, well-known content and IP than thinking about Walt Disney. So I learned a lot there, and sort of just, no matter what is
Mm-hmm.
happening, no matter where you are, those are the two pieces that you need to be really clear on: your audience strategy, and that includes understanding different layers and intersections, right? And then how are you connecting with them? That is brand storytelling and content. So when I got the call from Rich Dennis and Caroline Wanga to say, look, we've got this really interesting role, we're thinking about it very
Yeah.
differently than we have in the past. And we sort of want someone that has this sort of brand storytelling background, because we're in a digital media space with a legacy company that was Essence, another legacy company that is Afropunk, right? Different levels of legacy
Mm-hmm.
there. And then some really awesome opportunities with Essence Studio, which is its own production house, and ways to tell stories going forward. I looked at it as what an amazing opportunity to do more audience strategy, understanding different global audiences, and then telling stories that they are connecting to and partnering with them to tell the
Mm-hmm.
stories. And I say all that to say that it also was not lost on me that our
Mm-hmm.
stories, certain community stories, were under attack.
Hmm.
And I felt like I've done I could sell a lot. I was the pitch girl. Like, I could win you some
Right.
business, but like, do I want to look back in my career and know that I always know that I did what I could for my community? And I am watching policy, not just in the United States, but globally, be enacted that is erasing history, that is skewing stories, that is counting out people that have something to say and different points of view. And now I'm also seeing the death and transformation of some of the services and platforms that did that over the last 10 years and forced media to be more inclusive, like Twitter. And so I wanted to come here and make sure that I continue to sharpen how we connect with communities, but also be really cognizant of the fact that I could bring narratives forward during a time where media and the press itself is truly, trying to do their best to maintain their really integral role in society, because there's so many pressures, and it's an interesting time.
It's interesting, as to your point about it being an interesting time. Like, I think technology continues to compress everything. So, like, when I
Yeah.
was a kid, it just felt like things were kind of in their own space. Like, okay, I got my AOL chat room over here. I got
Right.
my I got
ASL.
ASL. We talk about ASL in the chat. I got my football
Yeah.
practice over here. I got school over here.
Right.
But everything
Right.
now is just so interconnected. I,
Yeah.
you talk about this idea of like brand storytelling with like, and you building and understanding audience engagement and building and analyzing audience at legacy brands. Like
Yeah.
what perspective or advice would you give to legacy brands? Because I could see some people say, well, yeah, Twitter was probably a great case study or example of the idea of
Mm-hmm.
connecting EX and CX strategy and brand storytelling for like market engagement
Right.
because of the platform that is Twitter, which is you're always interacting. But like, what would you say to those who, like, let's say a big oil and gas company, or like
Yeah.
some type of energy company, or maybe a company that only focuses on VPNs? Like, what is the work that you're talking about? How does that translate into audiences or context where the product is not so forwardly social?
Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that every single company should have some type of role or function or at least lens of culture and community within its ranks. And I think one of the things I've been reading a lot about is, there's all this sort of generational wars. The
Yes.
baby boomers don't want to sell their houses,
Yes.
and everybody talking about millennials. And I'm a geriatric millennial, and avocado toast, which I don't even like. And Gen Z's like, hell with all y'all. We ain't coming in the office. We going on vacation. We not gonna have no Social Security, right? So it's all kind of a mess. But I think what the bigger, more interesting pieces that we've seen is that the private sector used to be very, and again, you're talking about a society that has never been perfect. It has always been marred with iniquity at every
Mm-hmm.
turn,
Mm-hmm.
globally, not even just the United
Mm-hmm.
States, but also, of course, here in the US. But there was a time where the private sector felt that they were somewhat compelled to be responsible for the evolution of society, right? And so I think that as we have watched that erode in place of profits, what we have lost is that every damn brand should be worrying about the well-being of the constituents that it serves. I use an energy brand here in Connecticut where I live, and I just was reading an article about how, a 30% spike, right, in the hertz rate of energy has now made a huge impact on low income families where kids are rationing out time to do homework, time to turn maybe the electric heater on because they're in buildings where there's other types of issues. And so you might be this fat cat energy titan and tycoon, but your work, your product and your service always affects communities. You should always be in tune. And let me tell you, you get it right, you do a sliding scale. I'm making something
Mm-hmm.
up. So now that same mother and father in that low income property, now they can say, you know what, it is a sliding scale. I'm on this percentile. Now my child can do their homework all night. I guarantee you that family stays with you for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
A loyalty they'll give that company,
Yeah.
right? When they understand the problems. And who that kid got a
Yeah.
scholarship. Now that kid's able to go to Howard or whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's a ripple effect, but we lost the idea that companies that make money have a
Yeah.
responsibility to reinvest in the consumers who make them millions of dollars. It sounds like crazy now, and so I think there's a lot more. I think, as you said, there's sexier brands where we're telling deep, enriching stories and
Sure.
documentaries, and we're doing something really cool
Sure.
in the entertainment space. But every brand, from food service to, as you mentioned, energy and oil, to education and academia, everybody should understand that the communities they serve, because the idea is, yes, we're in a capitalistic society. There's a million thoughts about that. There can be revenue, but there also can be reinvestment into the society that we serve. And then really the whole entire ecosystem feeds on
Yeah.
itself. in a positive evolution. And we have lost sight of that. And I believe, I won't say the name because I'm trained from my media years of agency. We can never say the names of brands, but there's a certain airline who lost its way, who prided itself on innovation, right? And then you replace that, it prided itself. It wasn't just innovation, though. It was that you could go to this town where it's located on the West Coast, and it was a pride to work there. That it created a community, that created a lot of kids and people that went on and did other things because they had parents who worked at that airline, who were proud of their work, who had a work-life balance. Like it's an entire ecosystem. We have lost track of that. So to me, like what I'm asking is very bare minimum. It's not even extra.
And to your point though, like we've pivoted away from that. So like what do you think happens for us to pivot back to it? Because it seems as if we're accelerating accelerating at almost an exponential pace, further and further away from the concept of reinvesting back into your customer, your client base, or really into your customer experience. It seems as if that's not the case. So like
we're going the opposite direction.
So what happens?
Well, that's why I'll never stop telling stories of people who need to be heard, because the one thing I can tell you is when you have a balanced ecosystem, and again, I'm even naming a time past that wasn't even fully equitable. Right. Like there was still folks who wasn't being included in that, right? It wasn't even perfect then. So I want to be very clear about that. But it was more balanced, that it was harder for some to sort of pinpoint, like, this is messed up. Like, what's going on? I think the difference, and it's a little scary, but I still believe that light will always prevail. I think in the direction that we're going in is that the people who benefit and are like doing okay are the pool is smaller and smaller. So at some point, you're gonna be like, oh great, 10 people are doing awesome. And there's 230 million doing not great. Like, you know what I mean? Like at some point, but that's when you need things, platforms, or places like a Twitter. You need people like an Essence Venture to say, we are telling the stories about home ownership in the Black community and the difference between appraisals between Black, homeowners and white homeowners. You need us to continue shining a light on these things happening so that we can make sure that people are informed. People know that they can connect with one another and say, hey, this doesn't make sense. We're going to challenge that energy rate, because now I know maybe I'm not in the low income housing. Maybe I'm in my little, upper middle class. But now I know that there's somebody on the other side of where I live, that somebody's child can't do their homework all night. You tell enough people that, I believe in light, and I believe that people will care. And so again, like I said, I think that that's why it's so important for me to continue to speak to brands and continue to lay on them about their responsibility. Because again, ain't nobody gonna work their whole life so that 15 people could do great. I'm sorry, that's not gonna work. You know what happens. Marie Antoinette is the case study there. So we know where we're going. Yeah. Why don't we just switch course
before we get all the way there? Yeah, so
all the way there. We're not trying to get there.
First of all, I can't thank you enough. Like, I 1000% agree. And I also will say, I respect and appreciate you looking like, not so optimism sounds like, to me, optimism rings almost, there's like an undertone of like naivete there. So I'm not going to say optimism, but you have an action in mind, and there's things you're actively doing, and there's use cases you're building to create pressure for us to shift back into. And it's, the irony is that the model that you're articulating, and the model I agree with, is still capitalistic. Hey,
it is. There's still profit. It's still
capitalistic.
There's still workers and owner. There is.
It's like, hey, look, as opposed to you taking this big chunk right now, why don't you just take some of that huge chunk, invest it back over here, so that you can have more chunks later.
More chunks later. And then everybody can have a little bit more of a. I'm just like, I used to always joke. Sorry, I'm a hater on the men's for a
No,
little
hate on us
bit.
because that
Like
was my next question. Go ahead.
a little bit, just a little bit. And it's a light hate, but it's, I remember being in school and I'm an only child. I used to get my homework done like that. Like I'm getting that done because I don't want to hear my mama yelling at me.
Yes.
I'm gonna do all this other stuff now that she don't question me on, and sneaking out the house and partying because I got my work
Yeah.
done. But every guy that I knew was like, I forgot to turn in the homework. My mom is yelling at me. And I'm like, did you just, every day, you know that this is going to
Right.
happen. Why don't we just, let's skip that part and go to this? So, to have people that are so squoze and so stressed. And I think that it's all around. And so, I wrote an op-ed about, Dr. Candia Bailey, who was an academic administrator who unfortunately Black women took her own
Mm-hmm.
life because she was not being supported in her workplace. And so it's not just the work I'm putting out either. I also challenge myself as a leader to make sure that the people who I am, who report into me, who rely on me for leadership and mentorship, to even do this work, that I am empathetic to what they need. I am teaching how to be a leader. There's no need for, I think, negativity and vitriol in business. We put it
Mm-hmm.
there. Like people make mistakes. I make mistakes. People do try things that don't work. There's no need for anyone to be awful and terrible. And yes, there's hard, there's sometimes there's costs and there's hard decisions to be made. And I've been on both sides of that. But I think that we have just gotten to a point where we're not even now thinking about, do people need to
Yeah.
rest?
Yeah.
People need to bond with their
Right.
kids. People need to make sure that their mental health is okay. All of that goes back into the ecosystem, you
There's
know?
this like there's just this hyper extraction I think we're living in,
Yep.
right? Where it's just like every day these systems like they remind you that you're only as valuable as your rate of production. And
Right.
it gets tough. It gets tough, especially thinking about this market that we're in right now. But like,
Oh, gosh.
so to your point about your like healthy hate on the men, uh,
A little bit. It just look
tiny
like
hate,
high school.
tiny,
High
yeah,
school
tiny,
hate.
like
I love
yeah.
that.
So back to it. You were hired by another black woman
Yes.
to now be a chief content officer at a
Yep.
company that supports brands, including major brands that also highlight black women. Like, I'm
Yep.
curious about what is this experience like for you here as a black woman, senior executive,
Yeah.
yeah, C-suite executive, in this particular dynamic, and how is this dynamic perhaps different than other contexts you've been in?
Yeah. I mean, the first C suite in my family
Mm,
on both
mm,
sides. And my mother said that to me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, you know what I mean? Like, I never. You just like, I gotta keep going. I gotta do the things. I gotta.
right.
So, I mean, the milestone again, the ripple.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter being very comfortable. She's in the seventh grade now. We talked. She was in the third grade, second grade, depending on what month that was in 2019. I think the ripple effect of what that means and what taking this role on has meant for me personally is that's just one small part of it. I think the larger piece is exactly what I'm saying, is that like I'm always, since day one, since I got on this earth, just been always willing to ride for my people and those who have experienced things as my people have, and so I think that, being in an environment that not only is black and telling our stories and uplifting our people from the joy, the pain, the confusion, dealing in real time with some of the things that are coming down the pike, but it's the history of this company. This was the company that told my grandmother that she could be a successful executive, that she could go back and get her master's and start her own business, and who said to my mom, like, it's okay. Like, if you and, your spouse didn't get married, you can co-parent together and that's all right. And your child, me, could still be successful. The history of that, it's like, I can't describe the feeling of responsibility that I have when I think about this brand. And then I think about the newer extensions like Afropunk, making sure, a legacy of being a community for those who have been ostracized in different ways, and who were on the outskirts of society when they needed to be integral to society, and who were pushing culture forward. Something like a beauty con that can completely tear down the walls of what we've known about what is beautiful, right? And so I think that is, what's so inspiring to me. And I just feel an immense sense of responsibility to the community that I'm serving. And again, our brands, we say, it's the new general market, right? We serve primarily Black audiences with most of our brands. Sorry, this sun is crazy. But we also serve the new general market, which includes, all different types of ages and different people of different backgrounds and orientations and parts of the world and physical abilities. And so I think that is what I've always tried to do, is make sure that we were creating a ecosystem or a kind of I guess, I don't want to say a program, but a method of moving forward the things that they care about, and making sure that I say this at Twitter, like, I'm not looking at y'all outside the fishbowl. I'm swimming with y'all. Like, I'm always swimming with y'all. Like, we up in this mug together. Like, I don't want to be on the outside of these things happening. And I think that's what begets the best work. So I say that when you have someone like a Black executive who could make a decision that is life-changing for my family, and then hopefully I know I have the responsibility to be life-changing, and push what I can for my community. And then also to the folks who are at this company now, I have one of the most talented teams in the business. They're so amazing. And I love being able to pour into them and also learn from them. It's a new industry for me as well. Media, I know content, but media is different and new. And so I've been able to grow and stretch myself and trust an amazing team with that. And it's been, I hope, mutually beneficial, but we have a good time.
God-Is, look, you dropped multiple mics there. I feel like we got to end it right here.
Woo!
I appreciate you, again, giving your flowers. I'm excited about the work you're doing at Essence Ventures. I want us to keep, of course, we're going to keep lines of communication open.
Of course.
You're a friend of the show. You're welcome back anytime. But before I let you go, any parting words or shout outs?
Oh my God. Shout outs. Oh. I want to give you your flowers. I mean, you're talking about being in spaces that weren't built for us. You gave so much life and had people on like me who had dreams of building things and trying things and seeing if it worked in these spaces where there was no blueprint, And so I think a lot of folks didn't always know what to think when you think about me and some of my peers who have done amazing work. So I just want to say, I know how hard it is to, have your own, your own shop. And I love to hear the expansion. As you say, I'm an inspiration to you. I know you are inspiring me. And I know you also have inspired so many people. So I just appreciate I'm going to drag myself right now because, y'all, my schedule is listen, I have 2 EAs, okay? Like personal, professional. It's a lot. Shout out to Jasmine and Emma. That's who we going to shout out because they keep my life running. So I would be lost without my amazing admin support. 2 Black women who, again, I'm proud to pour into, who allow this Black woman to do as much as she can for her family and her community, and also take some time for herself because rest matters. I learned that from a mentor, the amazing Dr. Bernice King, who is an amazing person, and she always stresses rest because it is important to recharge as we continue the work that we got to do. So that's my shout outs. Thank you for having me. Oh my God. I feel like I rambled, but I was good.
You didn't ramble. God-Is, we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
All right. Bye, Zach.